Teacher of God's human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, who subdued from the shackle clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the third destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer from the shackle clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond the third destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, subduer from the shackle clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When no supreme amongst you mature born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies form supreme and pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds. Winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme science face like spotless blue, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Saviour having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you the one God to thus I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime reality, to the dark that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated and also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts. To you, the sublime communicator, virtue, I prostrate. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all 3 every devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms in all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may awesome beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foul faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. To page 15, the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on Massavatra's mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perfection. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty and inherent nature. And then through the power of Buddha, the venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage trade who wishes to practice the activity of profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the venerable Shariputra. Should any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly, beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, but deficient, not fulfilled.
Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition or factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly, completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice a profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoiced. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. To page 25 for the short mandala. Sashi Poli Jushi Mitotra Rirali Shini Gemhadi Zanje Shindi Midi Owadi Drukunanda Shinga Chukasho Jetsa Lama Damba Jinanji Chubu Kala Jinzi Dindin Shida Zambi Duje Zimala Saji Shuji Cha Abdu So Dagarane Mandala Kamiya Sanje Jadan Saji Chanan Chanjo Bado Dani Jasan Tage Chujin Jive Sonamji Dola Pinji Sanje Dubra Sanje Jadan Saji Chanan Chanjo Bado Dani Jasan Tage Chujin Jive Sonamji Dola Pinji Sanje Dubra Sanje Jadan Saji Chanan Chanjo Bado Dani Jasan Tage Chujin Jive Sonamji Dola Pinji Sanje Dubra Sho Ninde Jawazana Gushi Nishi Tense Kanyinda Dola Pemba Chinana Shini Shishi Denten Josewa Kanda Yanda de Medina Namago de Naza de Zama Ninde Shinja Sembeso Sanje Kine Himde La Chazelo Tunye Nye Sande Jabela Shishi Tense Kanje Tende Kwan Chana Pema Tense Jazola So Tesa Shindele Dosha Pantense Vela Marambo Jen Daki Choro Pende Dishone Kade Shimbe Kune Shisande Kusan Tuji Mutu Tsedu So 다 고노 곰데스 잡아 다 전주쌤 고노 통마 계셔 바드 계셔 담아 계셔스다 더더 봐서도 계셔 아니 체딜라 계셔 겨시말라 계셔 타월레 계셔 산제설레 계셔스다 그래서 전주쌤 생일 상하다 연말에 됐다 장고로 쌤 근데 고노인데다 단다 드리네스에 ning 심지 신라 펜바바식도 대체도 네 심지 신라 펜바도 야게 체도네 시진 다 온도제 닝기 삼 고노인데 어디 신변기 고노시 제tum나네 하고 요레스
correcting our motivation. It should be one of the altruistic heart of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta being important in the beginning, middle, and end. Also important in this life and future lives. Important in the context of both liberation and Buddhahood. Although we might not have uncontrived heart of awakening, bodhicitta by definition, we can study about it. And so therefore, within that, our motivation should be, from today, I'm going to practice kindness, stress the kind heart, in order to fulfill the needs of sentient beings. And to that end, I'm going to listen to the perfection of wisdom, which is expressed through the ornament of clear realization, just to benefit others.
Hi, da. Go gom ra tiring. Tizu dinde jile yang ngondo jin jizin chambo gom be senjo. Ngondo jin da shi jin ji to bede ngondo jiren ba serwa. Chomden de ji songbe do ge thun. Joja ni re ngoden tongba ni bede ngondo gren ba sidi lam jiren ba. Ode danda di da ngondo jin ki nane su. Ngondo jin ji do de chomden de ge yum shi jin ge do do jara. Bede su bene. Ngosu tongba ni sungpura bata ni shijin lamjirin badi jede ta shukla yuwa yinzaan di kodo goyo mara yanzo chiragu dujazu kodo goyo mara ta di tsui sewa suyana chizan bede ngondo jirin basu di ngondo jen sikdo di nyingyu chungwa di ni pe ta kewa sambu yin ten kawa gomna kewa sambu re re da samla yabu tambe inarwa
Rejoice that this time we have the opportunity to hear the ornament of clear realization composed by Maitreya Buddha. Really, it is an expression of the perfection of wisdom. What the perfection of wisdom teachings explicitly express is emptiness, a lack of intrinsic nature of reality. But what is implicitly taught is these path things. So essentially in Buddha Dharma, Buddha taught the Yum, meaning the mother of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, explicitly explaining the lack of inherent existence of reality, implicitly these path things. Now, because we can't directly get that first level of explicit emptiness, we have a chance to learn the implicit methods or path things. And just to hear that, just to hear the way that is clarified in these teachings, we are so, if you really think deeply, you're so fortunate just to get that. Just think on that.
야, 다 단단 건도 진래야 니. 그래서 퇴섬 치야 되겠다. 직내 람지 뒤중어서 람림 곰시기도 하다. 람림 곰시도 람지 림바드 곰이야로 봐. 람지 림바드니 단단 건도 진래다. 난 데나라서 세부시행 것도 와. 디네 직대니 칩상 직대요래다. 람 뭐네게 람림 선을 다니나네 단다다다데 슝단 틈바시다다 조용거라 직접 니데네 지든 참고 공부다 믹색 저와지 차기요 당서 단다디 먼저 이제 지든 참고 공부 송거라 제상 아니 마음 발야다 다자도 마셔제 tumbe 템베 제수 지든 참고 공부 템버 피기요로 저도 양직 송주 년야게 달래 하고 싶지 대화 하고 싶지 서로 하시던데 편도 신부 싶지래도 알아.
So we have the opportunity to hear and reflect on the ornament of clear realization, this path, valid path. And we talk about these meditations on the Lam Rim, or these steps on the path to full awakening. And the way that the ornament of clear realization is clearly set out are those very steps on the path to full awakening. So we get exactly that profit. This is the first benefit of hearing such a teaching. We get exactly those steps. Second benefit is that we get to make a connection with the protector Maitreya Buddha in the future after the end of the doctrine of Buddha Shakyamuni. The protector Maitreya Buddha will appear, and by hearing this text and studying it, we are making a karmic connection with the future Buddha. So there's the second benefit.
다른다 기생한서 니 전반이 시작 공부 고바지 dimbating 양자직 시에나 디 야고 싶지요 그러다 뒤에 먼저 전반이 시작치 곰 안데네 딘시곰 딘시제라 니 잠로 곰니 잠로 곰 사회제라 아니 신데 직팽이 중곰 아니 chanjuksim 곰 안도니 곰 된데 치도나 아디윤 전환서 곰 제고요로 다데 당봉한저 곰된데 잡나야고요 발음을 좀 아직제로 당보치 전반예샤디 곰 디네 전반예샤디네 딘시 야고 삼노다 딘시 삼노도 코인데네 잠도 야고 삼노다로 잠도 제스네 랜데라서 버드다 제원디다 디나라 교충무다 교중냠네 디제딜레 용도 디네 네 chanju ngejung de da jibu chung namna le yong ro di si samlo da yong de ande ne chanju sim samlo da ro de ne dongni samlo da ya me na dongni samlo da chanju sim samlo da ne tu ran da ji 간된 치고 ora sharan samlo 간된 치고 간된 가래 나 정말 제 차와다 갈라네 지 까마직 니 chanju sim ji 곰 아니 참 chanju sim 나 샤 아니 소수 뒤진도 지금 매력까지 쉐드다 된데라 chanju 셈지 신뱅이 셈지 야 천제네 뒤께지 쉐야다 오늘 내가 지도이나 밀레 편도 해와 지도이나 다 편도 두스제네다 달 곰자다로 된 발음되지다 말 두스 semna ngile rob droji parim rob droji tende ma samlatan ne ya wo resro
I thought to go again over the purpose of meditating on the 4 close placements of mindfulness. That's important. And also then lastly, reflecting on the 4 truths, the 4 noble truths, how that leads into an understanding of refuge. Then developing a heart of renunciation, bodhicitta, and finally a correct view of emptiness. Now, I know you like to meditate. I know that, but I think this system of meditation is a good way to go about the stages. So starting with the 4 close placements on mindfulness, then deepening that to understand the 4 truths, if you reflect on them. Then you'll start to understand refuge and what refuge entails in terms of the law of behavioral cause and effect, or karma. And what you have right there is the beginnings of the initial scope, capacity practitioner and the medium scope, as you're going for the heart of renunciation, understanding that the workings of karma. And then later you can go into altruistic bodhicitta and emptiness. And also relating that to your daily sadhanas, it would be good after those sadhanas, if before you go into your connecting with others, for 1 or 2 minutes, you reflect really strongly on bodhicitta. And if you do that, just a couple of minutes reflecting strongly on altruism, when you speak to others, when you interact with others through work, you'll benefit them. And I thought these stages of meditating will really benefit our minds.
tadango lu tamanyesha ro tamanyesha thanda de shenso lu ngo la mi yunde an lu ran ju ngo je su lu la ro ko ne che kang be thi sa ko ma samlo ya go je tang de ro an lu ju ngo de lu ji ran shin de samlo tang yunde an su sem de su go na la chu le ve so lu ma samlo tang ro an de ge ji ting chambaden ro ya la phendo yore.
Okay, stable. Yeah.
And the ludi, tende ludi da lamrim dan jayo na ludi ngol ta yondu ani ludi ani kan de bede nye ka tewaje jowaji sanwe ludi chawaje de jingal topsha tenro odi samno dan yonu ani tenjo tenje de le yongda da lu ranji ngol samno dan ma se lu ranji ngol de rang sinyi che ji sinyi sam dan de ludi 미다고래샤 동해고래샤 동아래샤 다음에 다 동아 다음에 그것도 삼는 데스탄도 이는 담고 미다고 삼는다나 야고요라 미다고 데 삼는다나 아니 루 계산한 거 루다 티링 루 찍고다고도 안 되러 나지 징지디 땅지로 봐 땅지 나지 징지시데 다른 쇼부에 루다 단대 루 먼저 찍바인 버버지 생겼다지 아니 지용고도 나지시데 나마데 다른 쇼부에 루체 아니 ngama tela tene thanda de chimar chade gora ngaji chingzi side cheda de kunyi chigresha tak chibujigyan ro resha sta yonde tangziro de da yonde ta de remendo sene thamburagwe midago samdang de ne chiwa midago sen lamling de ta jubu chunguge lamge chungo de le ngodo ro
So firstly then, going through these stages of the 4 close placements of mindfulness, relating it to that first noble truth of 2 sufferings, we are looking at the entity of the body, the specifics of it, from the head to the feet, examining it. And when we do that, it's good because then the mind stays in the body. as you will, and the mind stabilizes on the body. Not only that, but if you reflect on the nature of the body in terms of the Lam Rim, you can start to reflect how difficult it is to find such a body under the understanding of the perfect human rebirth being qualified with 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses. So, but not only are you looking at the nature of the body by entity, these specific things that we just mentioned, but also the general characteristics of the body, that it is impermanent and is in the nature of non-self. Well, let's go back to the first general characteristic of it being impermanent. We tend to grasp at yesterday's body being the same as today's body. And this is called grasping at a permanent self. And we also think that this morning's I is the same as the current I. So this grasping at a permanent sense of self, grasping at a body that's permanent when it is in fact impermanent, is the first growth level of the initial scope capacity practitioner. But we have to reverse, and we're relating this to the first noble truth of true sufferings by focusing on the body like that.
Tadi samlo tang ane Luis de da dunghe gran shin ro chi shin ro dunghe da juwe dunghe da shin do tang zhe shin ka shu de kya du ji ge dunghe sa de dunghe sum ba de ngo shi do go yo mar dang ro di shin na di shi go go yo re tang zo dunghe chen de da ji thun du de le yong go yo re ro ji kya sa na ane ka zo le ya ma ro de yo na 마딘 타야다 저 룰 네 나자든데요나 나 나자데 메로체나 나자들레 태바지 시기인 세베 동해들 텐데글로디 둔룰레 여러러.
Yeah. So coming back to the body being in the nature of dissatisfaction or suffering, looking at the 3 levels of the suffering of suffering, suffering of change, and the all compounded suffering. The first 2 for us are somewhat easier. This third one, the compound nature of suffering, is more difficult for us to understand its nature, its entity. So this first one, the suffering of suffering, even animals get that. They don't want to be cold. When they get wounded, they have the thought, I wish to be free from being wounded.
다 유배 동에 세야디 단다 먼저 치료부터 들어봐. 힌두게 출루도서 유배 동에 딜레 텐데게 로데 여러다. 유배 동에 세야디 먼저 배나 다 사제게 도저레 사제게 소와 대화도 들어봐. 사제게 소와 대화도 이게 정말 유배 동에 말한저 뒤에 대화 진디게 여러봐. 사제게 소와 대화도 이게 찾아 먼저 대화 진디 여디 정말 상로야고다나 겐테윤도 이게 정말 귤제 동행 차로다. 한다 베나 락바 벤다 딩와노도 이게 신에 토야래 벤도 쉬우치고르들 신에 딩오라 규베 동해래와 사제게 되어라고 제가 치료부터 딜레 텐데글로디 얘기요래 제가 다 낭바게 데 말에 캬바드지 기동에서 먼저 사제 녀월은 뭐 풍부시도 하네 풍부디 아니 코베네가 가래 이내다 사과도 캬바드지스디 동해 신이라 캡된 줄 알아시 동해 신이 이거 싸워진다 이시 동해다 유외도 이거 싸워진 만화도 류디 지내 나자로 매버체네 지 남시에 야구로버체 칼라도서 수굴 트로버체 니 주르지 국제네 수부데 데마타마르 제데네 스스 기우시고 인팅도로 류디 다다베 지당알라 데비다데 대신 참으라지 쉽지 정말 딕된 요르지 탱도 이나데 겐직 탭에다가 남산 동의 차로더라 세상 동의게 싸워 요디 데리다 디 차와두지 동의에서 풍부코랑 오버디 아니 동의 중 오인바디 다든다 디 제가 류트만 예샤카도라 삼로 망보 당기도 걸어 딜라 삼로 야고지
레비나 아니 초트만이 샤다 심트만이 샤다 추트만이 샤다 레야데스 레하워 그러와
Okay, decent. So this next level of the suffering of change, it is recognized by non-Buddhists such as Hindu practitioners who realize that contaminated feelings are objects to be abandoned. And when we really think about it, we cling to certain conditions, and when the conditions arise, we suffer as a result of clinging to those feelings which are contaminated. So really it is the source of all of our sufferings. And this becomes apparent when we when we accomplish calm abiding, this second level of the suffering of change, and that you are striving to be free of that level of contaminated feelings. But according to Buddhist view, that level is not deep enough. Once you have these, as long as you have the 5 contaminated aggregates subject to clinging, this third level of compound suffering, then you are within the constraints of cyclic existence, and the aforementioned first 2 levels of suffering of suffering and suffering of change, will automatically be there. So it's this third level we are recognizing, the compound nature of suffering. To give an illustration of that, you meet slight negative condition and you fall out. So how does this work? So your body might be going quite well, you're healthy, the weather's good, the food is good, the diet's good, everything's going well, and you think, oh, I'm okay. But one slight condition you meet, and that is the condition upon which you will suffer. And right there you have that third level of suffering, which is this pervasive compound suffering, meaning that the aggregates by nature are in the nature of that dissatisfaction. Now, just by recognizing that first level of the close mindfulness, close placement of mindfulness on the nature of the body, if you just recognize that with regards to these 3 levels of suffering, then it's easier when you get to these other close placements on feelings, mind, and phenomena.
Tadi du susula jelaya da komja ke migden chi kale jagumdo susulula da chi dere do susulula da de ande dungye gran shi de de sheyunde ta dungye ro ji yona ani ya goyor다 dungye ji yona dungye de ngo 가르도 다 she고로 초로 dungye de 초로 녀 초로 다디 녀데 하고제 되게 건라 녀 고랑 어디 씨바 제 되게 건라 셈 아니 템바 마제베 시네 토비나 저 템문이 샤레 다 알아야 되다.
Okay. That's really good. Just having, so we've identified the focal object of meditation, which is on the body, which is quite easy to do. It's right there. But when you start to see the body is in the nature of suffering, if you're going through sufferings physically, that's actually quite good, because then you can start to examine, so what is the entity or the nature of the suffering that I'm feeling? How does it produce feelings? And when you place the mind there, that there is that second close placement on mindfulness of feelings, just the sensates.
다디 초와 가려있는데 그래. 초와 대화이나 나당은서 사실 초와 대화미시 요마로와. 사실 초와 대화이나데 동해나 디시. 디 녀용 어디 시운디 디시벌 데네 가려용 그래. 아니 사제지 초와 대화 된되지 삼바직 연구를 와. 아니
양사 초 동에 레운데 동에다 텐도 로치 레용 거 따라 디엔데 다 디간에 중도로 봐 디간에 중도 딘데게 초 디도 간에 중도는 세바 먼저 다 만자다 되잘네 중어를 당하는 거 봐. 세바 내다 뇨몰네 중어를 다 봐. 디 군중데 말이다. 제가 당에 디도 초 디도 용야디 아니 뇨몰라데네 차단라데네 용거도 와 아니 레르는 다 레스트다 데스 하고야 데스 카고레다 데지야 늘 갑들라 뇨몰라데네 중화디 무슨 라토인데 아니 직 당부대 대신 그래 이번에 단다디 값이 왜난 딜랍송아 틱디베 누가 첨버려 르트만이샤 공배 사제지 르 냉일랭지 동해 중오 심바스 냉일랭 동해 중오 심바스야 되다 단다 동해蒙古 녀야샤 디 겨왕함에 레라 되네 총아 레 쿰싱 엠바들 되네 총아 쿰시 상불라 되네 총아다 여러든 디 총아레스 디 신용디 아니 냉일랭디 겨왕함에 세델라 되어메디 겨왕함을 되어 유든 주 신용디 다 대책디 오늘에 누가 첨부 쉬어지래도 알아 믹스에게 코된 첨부다 펜도 첨부 상담 망고 연구지래도
So then one starts to place the mind on feelings that are being observed, and the blissful feelings, the happiness ones, make one content, and you start to recognize that. So really you want to strive for those feelings of bliss, those feelings of well-being. Conversely, when feelings of suffering come up, there is the wanting to be separate from those feelings of suffering, those two levels of pleasure and pain. But what we really are looking for is the source of those two levels of pleasure and pain. We're talking about these contaminated feelings, and we come to see that they are a product of desirous attachment or karma and disturbing emotions in context of true origins. So really we are experiencing right there in terms of meditating on feelings, these afflictive emotions that are coming from the twofold desirous attachment or aversion, which are contaminated afflictions. Now, they are also related to karma. Let's leave aside karma for the moment. It's quite difficult to understand karma deeply, but just this level of the afflicted feelings, it's very helpful in the text. It says it really nicely when, by way of meditating on mindfulness of feelings, you will understand that they are the main origin of the cravings, are the main origins of sufferings that are coming from past lives. So right there, then you have the identification of the primary cause in terms of true origins of the dissatisfied state. So this is quite an important point.
다 초와디 영어 신도 동해나래 대화이나 카레나래 와서 무슨 류중올었다 아니 류용어네가 대도지 영어라 대도 영어디 상당히 초와체 초와디 ngol pha ta yon de dia ani serig chal pha thim ro yor ta ko chowa sa de ko shebar ba wa korala ta de na ani de chowa da ngzo chowa de du ta man nam do sha yor ba ko la sim ro ji ne tum na ani de nam do ro da chowa de du ro ge thang ma pha ye je ani kansa ji la be serig chal ba se shi rig be cha sim tham we cha ji shar ge yor ya de ngo ne je de tu na de sim thama ni sha ra re da tel ne tu na sim thama ni sha sa de da
Whatever feelings you will experience, happiness or sadness, pleasure or pain, are being experienced through the body and observing the feelings related to that. But if you go deeper into those feelings, which are basically also consciousness, they will dissolve back into the mind itself. of course, the mind revolves lots of mental constructs. So many feelings arise. But these thoughts of these feelings will dissolve back into the very nature, the clear nature of the mind itself. And this itself is close placement on mindfulness of the mind.
디 세리 초 녀외 차야 녀외 차 세리 차들 다 제데데 근데 내가 라베 지 코란 간삼질레베 파 동상상으로 지 왜 그런 신도 지 왜 그런 신상이면 이제 세외 차 당외 차인데 용거를 씁나 남도 다 디네가로야 남도 샤는 거라 다 대베 내주도 다 마음베 내주로 상당한데 단당한도 차징 나라 나르데 제메지 마음베 두마스 세도 어다데 디가돌라 삼노당도나 야고 예서레로 다 저랑도 요즘 고망 부제게 요인자 나데기 제메주스데 대베 내주야 태운데 디질라 심마주 딜라 토나마 제베체 라 딜레 하부다요 말다 딜라 토나마 제베체 샤샤나 코파 예로고 요래 마음발라 나딘데 최고요 딘데 최고였어 딜레야 지 레도로 시라마 제베체 심 다다와디 간라 샤고 요체네 어디 숨으래로 디단도 차징 나라 랍제디도 디하고 싶죠르데
When one starts to experience that bare nature of mind, that is, clarity, clear knowing, there's a clarity aspect and an experiential aspect of it, it just knows it. Then there's a lucidity, and if one can hold that in that nature of mind, that bareness, that is very good. As it says in the text, this is not easy to do, but if one can do it, it says in the text, don't think about the past and don't have lots of plans and hopes for the future. These two pieces of advice. That's not easy to do, but if you can remain in that present nature of the mind's clear and knowing quality, then you will find that these thoughts about what happened in the past and these fixations on future hopes and plans, they will dissolve. Thirdly, then, it says to abide in the present moment, recognizing the nature of mind. This is advice coming from the Mahamudra as well.
다다웨 심간라는 간데샤오레로 단다 심 세리 차들라 삼다나리레 소녀의 차들라 삼다 다다와지요라 다다가다 베나 당기 술라다데 수중오라다데 다가라한디요레다 다다와 가레 간라다데 내가 될라 아니 달하버데 단다다 자제다 되나 심 세리도 차라단다 심라믹베 시네지요라 심라믹베 시네라 아니 심 타만냐 샤라 당고 심모 송거라 세리기 차데 지단딜라 먼저 탐랑야 쉐디 남도 라면다 샤용 거래 남도 용거래 심나 남도디 용디 수미지 남도 용디 장한다디 가야라 우중 공자죠 롱종 지야다 우중 공자디 약슈래 피잡잡잡 연디는 간단질라 근데 초와 당보들라 줄리는 초월리디네 초와디다네 세 디에 파 당외 차로지다 지 세외 차로지 아니 지금 남도 녜서 왔다 근데 다다 냠냠으로 몽보 연구 여러 가지 감디나 아니 제 세리기 차들이야 아니 심 다다외 차들 뭐심 받지 다게 간라 심샤 제 대야들라 아니 소마 마주 루버샤스 계주 숨샤로 소마 마주 루버샤 소마 마주 루버샤스 소마 세데 텐좀치 기어 말했다 텐좀 매베터네 다가랑 레샤 이지 적으랬다 가 베나 차티구 찬도 주고 신스다 당아서 디인서래 단다 아주 별로이나 딱지마서 단다 차데 스폴러서 가자지 라우다 차지 휴지도 그 찬나나 뒤뒤 조금 쉬우지 뒤로다고 거를 지금은 더 갖고 베데 텐소메메도네 지구코랑 찬데나 숲주로보다라 대난시 차티구 찬도 주고 나 신세야 돼 텐소메베도네 셈세리기 차 디타가나레스다 심 다라레 토바치기요 말했을 때 셈이나 메나 당에 신기요나 메나 텐선 심 다라레 토바치기요 말 텐선 메베도네 샤고레에서 소마사들이.
Soma. So, placing the mind or abiding the mind in the present moment on mind's clear nature, realizing that mind has two, the clarity of mind and the experiential quality, whether you are focusing on that or whether you are just focusing on the present moment in terms of what kind of sensations are being experienced in the body, both of these are okay. But let's say you're cultivating calm abiding dependence on using mind as the object, isn't it? So you can cultivate shamatha using your mind as the object of shamatha. So here, what you have to do first is recognize, okay, so what is the nature of the mind first before you can abide there. So then you do that. And to that end of gaining that attention on the nature of mind, it's useful to practice breathing exercise, then breathing meditation again and again if you're going to use the mind's nature as your focal object. So then what happens is once you become good at breathing exercise and breathing meditation again and again, the feelings that you had or have, they start to dissolve or clarify, and the mental constructs start to rest. They become less, and due to that, you get an experience of clarity of mind when the mental constructs become less. The thoughts of inappropriate attention dissolve and become less and less, and you rest in that clarity of mind in the present moment. You should have no doubt about this. There's a saying in the teachings that says, just like a bird coming back to its nest just flocks there, I think, automatically. We had this example in Tibet, that certain birds, when coming back to nest, they would just go straight home. There's no doubt in your mind at all that this is it. This is the clear and knowing nature of the mind. You should not doubt that.
근데 주디 찍도 가서 스포러서 가서
Swallow?
디딘데 두는 배치 저거 도고매 실 선은 주로다. 디다 지금 별로 딱 지면서 딜레이 줘가지고 별로 지지 나고 저거 쉐비 차나라 민유지는 차난 주로라.
Okay.
This
is a really wonderful example. Here we have swallows, which are really fast. They fly very fast. And there's a bird in Tibet. I couldn't get the name. Takzima. They're even faster than swallows. You can almost not see them alighting on the nest. They're so quick. Essentially, this is saying, don't doubt the clear experiential nature of your mind.
So much majus la majus kejusun majus eta gaudugi yawachi gyoma ti yakuti duja yawachi gyoma kaga shasha kurs.
And then the next point is don't discriminate. This is good or bad. Rest.
Ro dang ranzu odi gaudu so much. Lugarsha sede pedi de share. 차대와 참바도서 리간을 하시시 대그러 강해제 여머의 스트레스 여머의 액담은 남도 여머의 덕바 여머의 삼바지우 시부 대그러 하시시 대그러 어딘데지요 대그레스 달하시시 지금 배진다데 곰디 자베 질을 대부 용구이서는 도다리 심데 다대가 간래 심데 다대 베나 소마세디 주소르셰 삼루파 심나 주베 내가 사세 juk shimbe negabla ane majuese garugi yawachi yo mares de jela khare yongores na ane sambal hoshi shi yongores dagana mutu je kyangde da ruwa be chadewa de ane rila de samba be ko hoshi shi de gro odinde ro de gro so re koro da garugi yawa mashina na hoshi shi de yongor da nganzu tanda garugi yawachi gro ati yakure de dujere minga chiksire khonga chiksire monga chiksire ane 수수수수야 담제로 이 담제 가서 아니 다 등산 배 담야의 만하지 담북 차제 나 당가서 배 스트레스 딩데 망고 쇼지 차야 돼. 가죽 망타는 거죠. 가죽이 매외이나 아니 마치 클래식식으로 연구했다. 대들은 틱스인가. 디기 충중지 연구했다 돼. 사제인데요.
So then there are these three pieces of advice. The first is when you are aware of that clear and knowing nature of the mind, have no doubt around that at all. Secondly, don't discriminate. This is good or this is bad. Don't revolve those types of thoughts. Thirdly is to just rest in a relaxed way in the nature of that mind. And I think this is really like the retreatants that are getting the result of stable meditation, in the sense that the cause is when you, that no doubt, that first level is when you initially enter into the clear and knowing nature of the mind. The second level is when you are able to stay there without kind of fixing, this is good, this is bad. And thirdly, the result is, when you look at most experienced meditators, they're just remaining completely still, totally resting in the nature of their mind. What happens for us is oftentimes this second level, there are lots of things we're negating, like it's good, it's bad, they said this, they said that. It's almost because we've got so much mental discursive thought, we have so many choices, and that's where we fall down. It's important not to follow that.
심터만이 샤라 곰베 라제라 아니 고봉원디 채워디 고든레게 요래 그래서나 다든데게 아니 심 디두게 초아 남도다 만들라데네 둥이용고요 인자 남도용에 그 자와디 그래 디무디제 마리바레와 세상 심게 디무디제 마리바데 메 마짐바체 까바이나 디다메도 베셔르용 오스 께도이나 안 디무디제 마리고 세바지다 용사레스로 세상 심 참만이샤 곰베 제라 고봉원디 채워서 고든디다 단다디 엘레 단다 심 코나가라 심 데스네 투비나 로와 심 세르기 차델라 심네 투비나 수미지 남도다 디에 도사야 말아 메디 수미지 남도 가베 각자직 연구로 하다 데 곡된 지든 버지로 하다 간다 담번 가서 레 곡된 지든 버지 톡으로 하다 안드네 야야야야야 슉쳤던 거로 다디 곡된 두야게다 탐란 약슈 디간라 심 때문에샤 고미야다 심 게 아니 세르기 차딩 원신 디간라 네토이나 아니 지 디용고여 가서 시바 내가 수수술래 아직 다디 대화 믹스에 대화 스타디 이시코 대화로와 데스 규령하여다
So then we can see, by focusing on the mind's clear knowing nature, we start to get this level of true cessation, the placing the mind on the mind's nature, because what is we know that the mental constructs, the thoughts of inappropriate attention, the discursive thoughts are born from this ignorance or unawareness that grasps at true existence. But when the mind doesn't grasp at that appearance, then there's a lack of clinging or a lack of grasping at a self. And then the mind becomes resting in its nature of clarity and experience. So therefore, those discursive thoughts are negated. They cannot be. Okay, so this might not be a true cessation, but it is a facsimile or a similitude of it. And therefore, it's important to do the close placements of mindfulness on mind in its clear and knowing nature. And then the mind can start to be peaceful, and you'll start to get a more of a stable mental bliss, special bliss.
다데네도 유 제장은 심라 미그베 신의 토베이네 다르와 심세릭 차들라 미그베 신의 토베이네 다 데베뉴몬 되자시당 고동 문주디 가로요라 얘도 바 가로도 하다 가로요르다 그래서는 세릭 차데 심 디간 내지 되되네 심디 차단을 조사요 말하다 그거 요 말하고 한다 고 누바디 요마라바 투즈딜야 차단 로야기 누바디 심딜라 코란 심 코란 세리기 차딩 오신 이제 내가 대대도 콜라 내가 구두고 요마다 로 제단데 신의 톱연도 아니 되뇨 문주가 가도레세야 되다 라트고도 알아 신의 톱연도 되외되자 시당 콘도가제 타도 좀 빵다 두고요 말데 문주베디 내가 매우 차도요 와 디각베다 문주가 왜 각바지 토고요 될 고den 지툼바지 샤고르다
So this what we're talking about, this facsimile, if you will, the similitude of mental peace, similitude of true cessation, if you obtain shamatha by using the mind as your object. In that state of abiding, there is no chance for these afflictions, such as desirous attachment, to manifest. They cannot, at that time, they cannot manifest in the mind. So these invalid afflictions of desirous attachment and aversion cannot appear in the mind at that time. They have no power. And what you've done is you've recognized part of the clarity of mind, and temporarily the objects of the desire realm have been suspended, but it is temporal. What you have is a similitude of true cessation because temporarily you have suspended them from manifesting. You have not eliminated them completely at this stage.
다들 수미지 남도다 되게 상마 심라 믹제 시내도에나래 다 내가 심 템포로 차는데 아니 되게 디가는 봐 팀베소를 채로 심나는 봐 팀베소를 차로 그 군조비 인자 치수 아니 내자데 라르도 되게 수 제용으로 양자 수 제용으로 따로 양자 아니 되자시단 공동아제 되게 양자 수 제용으로요
I think it is because in that level of calm abiding with shamatha, the mind is stable and the thoughts of inappropriate attention, the mental constructs, have dissolved into the mind. But because the mind is still abiding in this relative truth, when it again meets the conditions for them to arise, they'll come back.
다드네 아니 최대만이야 삼다운데 뒤준 다디다는 약셔래 심세리기 차지어로 심세리 차데 아니 먼저는 나요인데 아니 세리 차데 유그랑 원에 배 자자자단 버튼 팅요스지 난거여로 어디 제비나 디제는 많이 봐데 심거든 거 주니래로 저선 심거든 거 주니 선사 아니 동반이로 봐 동반이데 최대만이 샤로 봐 델라미그베게네 에 델라미그베 최대만이 샤 더 동반이를 미고 심딩 동반이를 미고 삼다나 야보도 저단 심 세리기 차데 강가서 무엇이온데 아니 랑원에 더 나용 거와 랑원에 더 나와디 아니 다든 세요다 디세요다 뒤에지 다든 우메리고 다든 제제 디세요라 디제는 많이 받다가 아니 생고딩 동반이래서로 근데 너 치시도 와데 마통은 통한 담바이 있어 마통와도 통한 담바이 마통은 그런 마통어래서는 심세리기 차데 유랑원에 두어지 나한테오래 나와도 제제제네 마통아 많이와 마시바죠라 다그라 아니 생고딩 동반이래 통한 담바스디 동반이래 다그라 생고딩 동반이 다른 뭐 개념을 다그라 에어레스티 다그라 레스 심랑원에 두어 다든 제네 많이와 다그라 생고딩 동반이래서다 안 대간라 냠버샤 대간라 내 대도비나 당원에 신도 아니 녀모제 두고요 말에 생고딩 중이데 딱 벌어와고 아니 디라야다 디게 간라 심데 내 도비나 안 대간에 주 되자시단 디묵기는 제토야요 말고 제가 돈이래 민네 아니 녀모 딕딕 타로 그랬어야 되다 고주 좀 보시지래도 와시다 이리와
Now looking at that fourth placement on mindfulness of phenomena. So you will have meditated on mindfulness of mind and its clear and experiential quality. and you might have had an appearance of that mind appearing to you as truly existent. But then you search under analysis the mind that you're meditating on and see what is its nature. Is it in fact truly existent as it appears to you or not? And you do that meditation. And when you find its lack of findability, you rest in that, which is meditating on the void nature of mind, which is the phenomena. As it says in Sutra, you know, when you search for the true existence of mind, it is not found. So it says in Sutra that not seeing is seeing, meaning that when you search for the mind's true existence under analysis, what you come to find is its unfindability. And so mind's empty nature is right there in front of you. You need not search for it in another place. You know, so not seeing is seeing, vis-a-vis not seeing its true existence. So then you place the mind in its vacuous, empty nature. You, in meditative equipoise, namsha. And in that state of meditative equipoise on mind's vacuity, because it is a state of permanence, there's no possibility for the afflictions. They are just removed and they cannot return. So that is why it is said that meditating on the mind's empty nature is the most powerful purification.
The signi, dog signi. Inji sig lava shivji kodara. Kasa. Madonna Tomba is Kandesa? Not seeing, Horsa.
Yeah, not seeing is seeing.
Then the Tambala, the Lado. Madonna, the Ton Tamba is Lord, Ton Tambasi, Ton Tambasi, the Tagas, Tonazam, Chik Tonazam Jamare, Tonanang, Toma choked Cubat.
Sorry, I forgot one part of that saying.
Take the lava shivjidu.
Yeah, so sorry. It says in Sutra like this, not seeing is the supreme of seeing. It should be like that. Okay? So when you don't see, then that is the supreme of seeing.
Chedan Ton Tambasa, the Tony Tonra Laura. Matoma Zamji Lamna, the lava shivchado, Dora.
Yeah, so that's saying that, yeah, not seeing is the supreme of seeing means that you've seen mind's vacuous nature, which means you've seen emptiness. So there's nothing better than that. So what does that mean?
Oh dear. Emptiness. 다 단대디 주시디 탁보에도 라 개 첨부래도 다 정도 곰데스 잡샤나로 당부 류테문에 샤디 수수 류르마 다치데 삼다 아니 수수다 저와디도 가려 요나 리고래로 데 하고 와체 동해 요네 다 야고요래 응외순도에 편도 여러다 저와 동해 요나다 약쇼래다 대와 요나다 텔레장 야그러다 어디니 마 곰지 잡더라 곰데스 잡시다디 곰데스 잡잖아 야고요래.
Those expressions of meditations on those four are quite deep, a little bit strong, but it's good if we practice on mindfulness of body and be aware of what feelings come up in the body, be they good or bad. In fact, if the body's suffering, even better, you've got it. You've got something to meditate on. Displeasure.
다당고 롱존데 차랑아 두시자 인터넷에서 류라니 오라 따즈디 인 류트문에서 곰데스 잡쇼스다.
Can you do 5 rounds of inhalation and exhalation of breath, and then just be aware of, place the mind on the body.
Lurang Jingol Taja Lurang Dunge Jingo Shimpa. Dunge de na Dunge Jingo Shimpa Chevina. Lurang Jingola Tawa Cheshanara.
When looking at the nature of the body, seeing it is in the nature of dissatisfaction, then you've got that nature.
Tadine ni Lugol Jig Samutanje Dunge Granshin Bashe. Dunge said that Nyora Torwa, Nyora, Chezanti. Young Ranshina Yore. Diana, Dunga and the Kemavina, Lulama, Sim Tayundi, and Simji, Lulia, Trud in the Leona, Trudi, Trunyon in Yorwa, this Shenanigor. And it wasn't this Shenanigor.
Then, if you can recognize that body being the nature of dissatisfaction, then feelings will arise around that. Recognize them. If there is no displeasure or suffering in the body, you might notice heat in the body. Just recognize the heat is fine.
Lula, Sim Cowan, so the trillion, right? The trillion with the Yorva, the Tonya Dushian.
Generally, wherever there is a body, the mind can recognize there's heat there. Just recognizing that heat is, and placing the mind on that sensation is the close placement.
That's so to do the game, so to do the 간의 정도 배정을 생활에 차단을 되는 요. 다 차단되다. 방고도 상례비나 아니 군중 시험을 차사야 될 내용으로 고등직 레라다 뇨몸의 군중으로 와다고.
Then if you are recognizing the feelings of pleasure and displeasure, recognizing that wanting to experience pleasure and not be separate from it, and the opposite, then you abandon the cause of it, then you recognize true origins, abandon them.
다데네 초디 뇨의 차 세리기 차 뇨와디 컨데도 따베나 콩네 이 뇨와디라 심네tum나 고 세리기 차를 회전 유로래 남도 그 제일 마주고시 대tum나로.
In having recognized those feelings, if you can place the mind on them, they will become clarity.
다 디데스 가고 여러와 삼산 세우 지금 말디라네 남도 심난다 만데 체용지 심세리 차데 심고 신야데 레라고요 말와 제단이 딜라야네 지 남도 가야를 베즈메마 체비체 지 breathing exercise chena degree breathing meditation chena degree do stage che thanga khashi skabda ne simjangde ne khaga deda ne 지 sim 타외 차 시외 차 근데 심 세리 나와디 샤용으로 대샤나 아니 대 ngösim 바체 되게 간라 ngösim 바체 대토비나 아니 대 심테머니 샤사들이다.
That is not easy to do because we find we have a lot of mental constructs, a lot of discursive thought. So resting the mind in its clear wakefulness is not easy. But don't push those thoughts. If you are having lots of discursive thought, recourse to breathing exercise, breathing meditation, do a few rounds of that. And when the mind has settled, again, recognize clarity and knowing and just be aware of it.
다 심세리 차디가라 뭐 센토나니 아니 대생무딩 돈이라 곰초그라 다 심세리 창외 세마도나나 아니 스스 nga 동반이 곰샤나 디고라 나 곰자니 nga 스지 심지 샤는 것도 풍부 땅 칸라 때문에 아니 완주어 보러버지 라와 버러버지 자자자다 뭐 유지문에 tudden 저 nga세요 어딘데 nga데야 세버스 티 제네 많이 봐데 아니 nga딩게 아니 가서 동반이 텔라섬네 투비나 다 저타만야 샤 두세 샤슈 두 상다나 디고다 남사 셈세리기 차디 하고 말에다 우주 갑되네 야 야고요 말아 되네 nga 간상 그다음에 탐모디가 검접 당고 간상 다음에 탐모 고마저거나 아니 간상 미다고 간상 따지러마지 동안 간상은 제도 제이 동안 간상 이에마 방제틱 삼단도이나 그래서 최초만이 샤르바다 간다
Okay. So having meditated on mind's clear and experiential nature as your object, close placement of mindfulness of minds, you then examine further to try and see its empty nature, its voidness. Well, if you haven't been able to recognize clearly the nature of mind, that would be difficult. So if that's the case, you can take as your object yourself, this notion of I, and then think I'm void, I myself lack inherent existence. So you search for an autonomous nature of yourself, an autonomous owner, independent of the aggregates and so forth, and such an eye you can't find, and you place the mind there. So you might be able to start that with meditating on the subtle non-selfish persons, if that works for you, or if not, go into the more grosser stages of you yourself being empty, being empty of being permanent, unitary and autonomous, and place the mind there, and that will be fine for close placement and mindfulness of phenomena.
하디요 세디엔 콤디오 저런서 람상 동번이 먹으면 셔라 미다고 봐 미다고 삼는다 계산하게 나 드린 가지 진지 따고 따기도 하대 달래면도 나도 미다고 그러셔서 나디 아니 전신이 다지 동하셔서 안저 따기도 아프면 완주어 보러 전신이 다지 돼요 말이야 다음에 라고도 쓰는 안데 내 다음에 참어도 삼다나 방제 삼로 데스타미나 다디 최트만이샤 간라 조용으로
It might be difficult for us to meditate straight away on the lack of inherent existence of ourselves, or that notion of I. But what you might be able to start with is the notion of your impermanence. On that grosser level, start by thinking that you're not the same person that you were yesterday. So going from the grosser level to the yet more subtle one. So after that, you start to examine your aggregates and think that, are you inherently different from the aggregates, vis-a-vis being an autonomous owner of them. So examine that lack of an I as well. And that is meditating on close placement of mindfulness on phenomena.
어다디 내가블라 아니 ngaseedina ngala tene phungbula tene takpasera seed zula da khodyen zula deste samludan thwina yabodo a samlo mangboda chikdi mangbo khode charan zo ngaran samlo khode samdangoda ta samlo mangboda na yago isirde samlo manstana ne semnalogy wa samlo madana na thanda ha khob zamjide des khaburedo.
So when you do this reflection on your sense of self and the relationship between self and the aggregates being mutually dependent, that's good to reflect on these words a lot and think on it a lot. because if you don't have something to reflect on by analysis, you're not going to get the meaning in your mind, and you need to conclude the meaning.
Oh, that is how.
Today we dedicate now.
Discussion.
Oh yeah, go into it.
This is going your Jimmy.
Is there a next week one?
No, we have. No.
The week after.
Ale, Juma.
Ale.
2 weeks.
근데 주마 아니 단다디 테마니샤디 시디게 덴실로 단데 림바디 야고 단당에 셰우나시 야고 지도도네 야고다디.
It is good for you to discuss just how we have the 4 close placements on mindfulness, how each one of them, body, feeling, mind, phenomena, and so forth, relate to the 4 truths.
And then kansan komdan rimba tharadi jedra midagwada tajirawaje do ranje duze do da ne dame thamo kansan dame diye tharado dan diye da ne kansan phungbula dene taw zo des sam da komje drilling chidana yagbora.
And also discuss the 2 levels of the lack of the true, the existent person, both subtle and gross. Of course, thinking first on the person's lack of permanence, its lack of being unitary or autonomous, and then going into the more subtle self-sufficient substantial existence, lack of a person. And then you can go even more subtle to see how the person or the self and the aggregates depend on each other, and meditate like that.
Oh, that did.
They'll be fine.
Okay.
Page 31 for the short mandala. Page 33 for prayers of dedication. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of good order, and may all living beings without exception integrate my state. May the supreme jewel body teach that has not arisen, arise, and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Whatever slight positive potential I may have created by paying homage, offering, and acknowledging my faults, rejoicing and requesting that the Buddha stage. I now dedicate all this for full awakening. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by the victorious ones thus gone of the 3 times, so that I might perform the noble bodhisattva's deeds. May the king of Dharma, Tsongkhapa's way of Dharma practice flourish. May the omens of obstacles be pacified, and all the conducive circumstances be complete. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, giving imperiously kind, Tenzin Gyatso, sacred, the snow-land teachings have my great
It makes extremely clear in the path of communication, awakeness, and compassion.
Let us hold it, Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, and your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subduous moral way, who serves the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining and preserving and spreading mindfulness, victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish movements and prayers honoring the 3 jewels, Saviour of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. By relying on the due accumulations of myself and others in the 3 times, may the teachings of the conqueror Losong Prabhupada blaze
for a long time.